And so we come to the final part of the decision-making exercise, which, surprise, surprise, is making the decision. So far, you've looked at the arguments for and against coastal protection. We did that by recapping on some of our GCSE notes. The strategies and the methods as well was built in with that one. We've looked at the shoreline management plans and how they operate in detail. Remember, that is on the A2 specs, so you need to know that in detail. And you have done some considerable examination of the context of North Norfolk to assess the risk of flooding here and the erosion. You've looked at the environmental impact assessment, and you've also looked at cost-benefit analysis. But it's time now for the decision. So I'm going to give you a budget of £25 million. Yeah, I'm feeling very generous today. And you're going to use that to make policy decisions for a section of the North Norfolk coast. And I'll come and show you that in a moment. So you're going to go into a small section, and in light of all of this, you're going to make some policy decisions. And of course, in those policy decisions, you're not going to please everybody, so you will have to justify those. Okay, so where's the section? Where's the area? You go to bookmarks, and it is in here, the bookmark number 7, into this Trimmingham area here. Now, we are just down the coast from Cromer. There's Cromer. So you'll remember what you've looked at in Cromer in terms of all of the arguments and so forth going on there. We've just come down the coast a little bit to this section here. And in fact, this area is near side strand that you've already looked at, so you will have taken a look at some of the aspects here. I've already sent you in to explore this area. It's not an area that's new to you, but this is the little section of coastline that you're going to be making decisions on. Right, how do you go about doing that? Well, you've set the broader context for all of these things. What you need to do now is to come into this small section and familiarize yourself. Now, you've really done this, so it is a familiarize yourself before, but there are a few tasks I want you to have really specific and detailed information on about this area. So the first one is the erosion risk. So you're going to be looking at the geology, right? So you go and turn that geology layer on as you were used to doing before. So not surprising. That's that. Well, you can look it up. I'll not tell you. Look at what the geology is. And then I want you to sample the erosion rates along this section of coast. Which technique will you use? And what intervals will be within them. Right, the sampling here. Now, a little bit on sampling. There are 3 main types of sampling that you can do. You've got random sampling, where, as the name suggests, the points are picked at random, typically by a computer that will generate random numbers for you. Then the second one is systematic. Now this is the one that was similar to what we did for our GCSE and AS fieldwork. At least we tried to make them systematic, which is along regular intervals. And then the last one is something called stratified, but we'll not need to worry too much about this one at this stage. So which is better here, random or systematic? Well, in this case, we're going to pick systematic because we're wanting to get a good regular coverage along this coastline. If we do random points, they might get bunched up here and fewer here. We need to get a sense all the way along here what the gradual change is like. So to do that, you need to measure the length of this section of coastline. I tried to make this box exactly 3 kilometers long. Let's see how close it got. Oh, nearly, not quite. 3 kilometers, right? That's because that'll make the sums easier for you. So 3 kilometers in length, and I'm going to get you to do 6 survey points along that. So at 3 kilometers, 6 survey points. The interval between them is... You can do a wee bit of maths on that one. So what you need to do then is go along each one of those survey points. It's 500 meters. You figured that out, haven't you? Let's get rid of that in a second. Right. So you start here. You come along for the first 500 meters. We see that number going up and up and up and up and up and up. And it's hard to get sometimes absolutely precisely. So as long as it's as close as that, that's where you're going there, 500 meters. So I need to turn back on the National Coastal Erosion Risk, right? And at that point, 500 meters along, I just select here. I need to turn this off first of all, so I can select just here. That's my survey point number 1. Oh dear. I'll just close that out of the way, will I? Third time lucky. Here we go. Survey point number 1. And I can see here is the box that jumps up for me. So what you need to do is the 95% erosion in the short term and the 95% erosion rate in the long term. So this is the most likely short term and most likely long term result. Okay, now then I've got a spreadsheet down here for you to fill this in. There's some instructions about how to do that, and you need to notice here, please file and make a copy. Don't forget that bit. You can add your own data. So you fill that in, distance from Cromer, distance from the left-hand side, or the western side, I should say, of our box. So the distance there, and then the erosion, right? Then you need to choose a suitable graphing technique to produce a graph. Now, one of the things you need to do in your decision-making exercise, you'll be given a table of data like that, and you have to draw and include a graph. So what is the appropriate type of graph here? Well, you've got two sets of quantitative values. You've got distance and you've got erosion rates. So when you've got two sets of numbers, the graph is a line graph. If you had numbers and categories, then it would be a bar graph or a pie chart. But in this case, it is a line graph that you need to draw. Draw that in Sheets or Excel, and then you'll have that ready. Okay, and again, back into reminding yourself, are there any SSSIs? So you can turn that on to see if this is an area, if there are SSSIs. Again, I'm not going to do that for you. You can turn that on, find that out yourself. Any historic buildings, are there? Well, do you remember this wee church here? Shh, don't tell people I gave you that clue. Population density and land use. Remember, we tied those into cost-benefit analysis. So what's the value of the land that's being saved here? Now, there are no unpopulated areas along the North Norfolk coast. None. There are people that live here, but there are places of higher and lower density. And remember, the difficult choice that you have to make is the value of what is being saved greater than the cost of building and maintaining the defences? Now, of course, you don't have the land values there, but you can make a reasonable assumption. If Cromer, if this area here, I'll just turn this historic map off so you can see it better. If this area here is worth saving, I wonder what you're going to say about this area here. Again, your choice, but you've got to make the justification. And in light of that, you've got to decide. If you remember, you've got your 4 main policy decisions, and then the 2 that are most common are hold the line and managed retreat. So, which one of those 2 are you going to use? Are you going to use it entirely along the whole area here? And then what methods are you going to use for this? Now, managed retreat, remember, is not the same as no active intervention. No active intervention is literally, as it suggests, just do nothing. Managed retreat is doing something to manage the way in which the coastline will retreat over time. So you don't just go, oh, managed retreat, if that's what you decide, and say, well, that's fine, it doesn't cost anything. No, it's managed retreat. So what methods then are you going to use to conduct this? And you need to justify your decisions. Decisions. There will be no perfect decision. Some people will not be happy with your decision. You need to have a good justification. So how then are we presenting this? What I want you to do is to screen grab the map and put it into a PowerPoint. It's probably the easiest thing for you to do. How do you screen grab? Here you press on a PC. I'm not sure what it is on a Mac. If you use a Mac, you're going to have to figure that out yourself. But on a PC, it's the buttons on the keyboard, Windows Shift and S. Windows Shift and S. And that allows you to drag a box around to screen grab. So screen grab that, pop it in here, and then this is where you start to mark things on. Now, some of the boxes up towards the top, my screen isn't quite recording all the way up there. So let me see if I can drag this screen, middle recording. I'm just going to pause this and see if I can move this. Okay, so it appears that does work. So here is where you can then insert some of the bits and pieces. With this, you can input shapes like a text box. So this would be text in here. Let's just say, for sake of argument, that you have decided that you want to hold the line here and that you want to put in a seawall. So you want to put a line here showing this. The seawall is going to go in there. The shape outline, you can change that so that it stands out better. Maybe you want to change the color, that kind of thing. Change the weighting of that again. And you need to have some text that'll go with that to explain this. So I want a well annotated diagram, and at the top I guess you should probably put up here things like location, and then once you've put that in over a bit, whatever your policy approach will be, policy approach, i.e. hold the line or manage retreat, whatever it's going to be, then you pop this in here. And a couple of other things that I want to make sure that you include in here. I want your cost breakdown, please. How much this is going to cost. Remember, your budget is 25 million. And the other thing that I'd like you to include in here is, and you can put this maybe in a box around about here, this is your graph, including a brief description of erosion rates. Okay, so at the very least, that's what you need to do. If you want to, whenever you're doing this, have other layers turned on when you do your screen grab, or if you want to do a series of slides showing the different layers, that's entirely up to you. I will give you some freedom in terms of how you present this, but I wanted just to give you a bit of an idea of how I want this information presented, and then the kinds of ways in which you can add that on. What I'll do is set up a Google Slides document where you can then just screen grab this and put them onto the Google Slides. And then in our class on Thursday, I'll be getting some of you to talk through your decisions. Now remember, I should definitely put this in because this is really important. You need, I'll put this in capital, justification. You need to justify your choice, right? Why have you chosen this? And you're going to be making the kinds of arguments about environmental impact assessment. You're going to be looking at economic cost-benefit analysis, weighing those up. You're going to be looking at the impacts on the cultural heritage here, all sorts of things like this. So there's plenty for you to be discussing and justifying that, so you can get plenty of annotation onto that slide for you. So hopefully that has guided you through this little exercise a bit more, but you can send me a message if you're struggling at any stage.